So I still have Facebook because I keep in touch with some people that way. Mostly I just post important announcements or stuff that I think is fun. When we started having all this news about the crisis in the detention centers a year or two back, I got uncharacteristically upset and I posted a lot of stuff about that. And I would have these, embarrassed to say, I would get in these Facebook arguments, where you have like, click to view 37 previous comments. And it's just like me and some person going back and forth. Little embarrassing. But anyway, a lot of times I would disagree with these people and be like, look, you can't separate these kids from their families and then put them in these conditions where they don't have medical care or all these things. And I'd talk to these people who would say, you know, it's not that big a deal, or um, it's fine, oh, maybe we should do more of it. And these were not just like random anonymous trolls. These were like people I knew. Um, and so eventually I'd say, look, I give up talking to you. If you can't see why it's wrong, I can't make you see why it's wrong. There's nothing I can say that'll convince you. It's just something you have to see. And that's kind of where W.D. Ross is coming from in the reading. Um, it's a very short reading from his book, The Right and the Good, very influential book from the 30s. Um, he's responding to people saying things like, look, we should just boil ethics down to science. It should just be about science, and these sort of old traditional beliefs like that you should keep your promises, or that you should um, care about your family. We'll get rid of all that. It's not going to matter in the ethics of the future. Those are just like antiquated, obsolete things that are stuck in our brains, right? Ross comes back and says, no, that can't be right. My belief that I should keep my promises and that it's wrong to break a promise, I'm at least as sure of that as I am that you've somehow figured out ethics using science. I'm not just going to dump this belief that I'm so sure of, you know. That's kind of the main argument he's making. Because he says, what else do we have to go on when it comes to ethics? All we really have are what we've arrived at through a lot of people thinking about it really hard for a long time. That's the data. Those are the data. Um, so he has just as much trust in these specific moral judgments, like you should keep your promises, you should care about your family, as he does in any grand theory about morality as a whole, right? Um, so he's part of this movement called Intuitionism. Intuitionism in ethics is the belief that we can know what's right and wrong by thinking carefully about it. It's kind of like when I tell these people I'm arguing with on Facebook, you've just got to see it. You've just got to sit down and think about it, and you'll see in your mind that it's wrong to treat kids this way or whatever. Um, that's intuitionism. Now, it doesn't just mean you go with whatever your gut tells you right away. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, maybe starting around 10 years ago, there was this big sort of panic because people found out that um, a lot of our produce has been genetically modified, not just bred differently or cultivated differently, but scientists for the first time started to go in and actually change the genomes, like tweak the chromosomes or give it different genes from another plant so that it wouldn't die as easily or it wouldn't get blight or mildew or whatever. Um, People freaked out. Like, oh no, we don't know what this is going to do. It's going to, give us birth defects or poison us or something. Turns out GMOs are fine. You know, they don't really, it's still just a plant. There's other things about GMOs that can be kind of sketchy, like some of the companies that make them are a little sketchy. But genetically modifying a plant on its own, it's not like it makes it less healthy or anything for you or for the plant. So Ross isn't talking about that. He's not saying, oh, you should just go with whatever your gut tells you right away. He thinks you should sit down and reflect on it and sort of be in the right headspace to think about this stuff. But he thinks when it comes down to it, all we've got to go on in ethics are what people believe when they sit down and think carefully about right and wrong. We can't go out and, you know, we can't like look through a telescope and find goodness and badness. We can't put it under a microscope or pinch it with calipers to measure it. But at the same time, it is something we can really know. It's just that it can't be measured and researched in the same way that we could with something from biology or chemistry or physics. So it's an interesting position, intuitionism. It's this idea, on the one hand, you can have knowledge of ethics, but on the other hand, your knowledge of ethics is intuitive. It doesn't come from research or argumentation or anything like that. It comes from being able to see ethics as it really is. I present intuitionism first because, as you're going to see, a lot of the specific theories we look at aren't very content with that. If I was going to say, oh, broccoli is healthy, and you said, why? And I said, oh, it just is. That wouldn't be much of an explanation, right? So for Ross to say, oh, we can know what's right and wrong, and you say, well, how do we know? And he says, oh, we just do. A lot of philosophers find that very unsatisfying. They want more of an explanation of how we can know what's right and wrong and what makes it right and wrong. So when we start the theories like utilitarianism, Kantianism, those theories are going to give us more of an idea of how we know what's right and wrong. That's the main thing for this lecture. Intuitionism is this position you can take. Ross takes it. He makes some arguments for it, which you'll do in the extractions. And then when we start the more filled out ethical theories, we'll look at what they have to say instead.